Farmdale Farm. Today I wanted to walk through all the vegetables I'm planning on growing on the farm this year, but more helpfully go through in order when I am starting those seeds or direct planting, what my calendar looks like. I thought this could be really helpful because it is February, it's February 7th. A lot of people are thinking about their spring gardens. A lot of people are asking on like gardening groups, what is everyone starting? What can I grow now? So I thought I'd just tell you what I am doing. A couple important things to know up front. I garden in Northeast Oklahoma, Zone 7A. But when we are talking about seeds, it is more important to know your last frost date than it is to know your zone, because zone is just talking about the coldest temperatures that you hit in the winter, but doesn't really tell you that much about when your season, your growing season really starts with your frost. So my last frost date is April 15th. If you are in a zone 5 or a 6, you can take what I'm doing and then adjust it by a couple weeks either direction based on, like, if your last frost is May 1st, for example. You have a 2-week adjustment to make based on what I am doing. But a lot of people actually have an April 15th-ish last frost. So that's how I'm making all of these decisions. Got some of my flower seedlings in front of me. I wanted to put green in front of me, to be thinking about green, because right now it is brown and rainy and cold outside. But the little seedlings are making me so happy. But we're not talking flowers, we're talking vegetables today. First things to start. What can you start now? Tomatoes, peppers, onions, and celery. So I buy pepper and tomato transplants. I have with the flower farm, my grow racks, I have 2 of them now, are almost entirely filled with flowers. I like to soil block, which is doing those little brownie bite soil blocks for my flowers. For a lot of vegetables, you have to pot them up, which means they can't just stay in the little brownie cubes. They need to go up to a larger size, which means they're going to take up more space in your grow light area. I want to prioritize space for the flowers, so I've just determined it's easier to buy tomatoes and peppers. And as luck would have it, my good friend here in Oklahoma, she has a plant start business where she grows just hundreds of tomatoes and peppers and melons and perennials and all this stuff. And so I just give her my order and tell her, and she is growing for them right now in her basement, which I love, and I'll pick them up in April. But if you don't want to buy transplants and you want to save some money, you want to do it from seed, you should start your tomatoes and peppers pretty soon. Celery. If you want to grow celery, celery is a great thing to start now. It grows pretty slowly. My seed packet here from Baker says start seeds indoors 8 to 12 weeks ahead of last frost, and we're definitely in that zone for April 15th. It's interesting, celery needs to start really early, but it is cold fussy. It doesn't want to get very cold, so you have to plant it out after last frost. So it's a long lead up to get to plant out time. I'm probably going to be starting these this week even. And then onions. I bought onion starts online. That's the ones that look like little scallions, little green onions that'll be shipped sometime this week to be delivered. And I'm going to record a video next week of me planting those onions in our raised garden. So if you're interested in that and to see how to do it, what it looks like, all things onions, subscribe and look for that video next week if I get them on time. But the adage typically is around Valentine's Day, you plant out your onions. If you wanted to start them from seed, you, I would say, are a little bit late. So I would look into sets or starts for your onions, but this time in February is onion time to be thinking about that. So that's in my start now category: tomatoes, peppers, celery, and onions. If you go to a Lowe's or a local nursery, you'll actually probably start seeing those onions set out for, set out for purchase. That kind of tells you that it's time to think about onions. After this, so after the 1st and 2nd week of February, we go into the get ready to start category, start soon category. And in this category, I have carrots, peas, and lettuce. So my carrots, I have 3 different varieties of carrots. I have Bolero, Napoli, St. Valerie, and Uzbek that I'm going to try planting in a 3x8 size bed. I think I have in my raised bed plan. And these are going to direct sow. Carrots do not like to have their roots disturbed. You need to direct sow them. They're not going to be happy if you start them ahead of time. And they're pretty easy to direct sow, especially in this cool temperature. So the first week of March, my carrots are going to go out. And the trick is you just need to monitor their moisture. They need to stay moist to germinate. So if there's not any natural rain, you're going to need to get a watering can or your hose out to make sure that they're keeping some moisture on them for best germination. That's carrots. And then during that same time, I am going to direct sow my peas, my snow peas. I have snow peas and snap peas that I'm going to do. And peas are fairly frost hardy, which means they can handle a bit of a freeze. They're not going to be happy if it becomes 20 degrees, but they can handle 30-degree night, a 29-degree night, which is typically what might happen in the March timeframe leading up to our last frost. But if your last frost is in May and stuff, you're not quite ready. They're not that tough. So my peas are going to go in, and they're also going to be direct sowed. My plan in the raised garden this year is I'm going to grow all the peas up my 3 cattle panel arches that I have. I'm not going to install any other trellising. They're just going to go there, and they'll have their trellis right there. And then the third thing I said for in the start soon category is going to be all of your lettuce and your spinach. Again, these do well direct sowed. You can start them inside if you wanted to start them inside a couple weeks. Well, probably like next week or even this week, you could start them and plant them out. The key for lettuce is when it gets close to March 1st, look at the extended forecast and kind of judge what do your cool night temperatures, your lows look like. If it is still very cold or we're getting some like freak Arctic air blast that can sometimes happen as we transition into spring, hold off on planting your lettuce, delay it a bit, get through that super cold snap, and then plant them out because they are not going to be that happy if it gets super cold. But I'm doing, let me look, I don't even remember what I'm doing. I'm doing a Merlot lettuce, which is like a red muslin. I'm doing a spinach. I'm doing a romaine. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. I have a spot in the garden I'm going to direct. So again, I want to save grow rack space for things. If you don't have a huge setup and you do only have a couple lights, really consider direct sowing a lot of things and saving that prime real estate for like your tomatoes and your peppers, your celery, things that really need to be started well ahead of time that you can't direct sow, and don't waste space on the lettuce, the peas, that sort of thing. One thing that I am not doing, but I wanted to mention, is if you want to grow cabbage, cabbage is going to be a start soon, start now type vegetable. I realized when I bought vegetable seeds in the fall that both of the cabbage that I picked are considered late cabbage, which means they actually are much more heat tolerant and they want to grow all throughout the summer and be harvested in the fall. Thinking back, like, Alex, what was your brain thinking when you did that? I realized my brain was thinking when the ranunculus flowers are done, since they have hoop tunnels over them, the ranunculus will come out, the cabbage will go in, and I can cover it with insect netting to try to preserve the nice leaves and get a nice head of cabbage and not be battling summer bugs all summer with all of the cabbage worms and the munchy crunchies that want to get in there and just make the leaves look like Swiss cheese. So that's why I got a late variety. But if you got a spring variety, and your seed packet should tell you which you got, start your cabbage soon. They'll want to go out in cool temperatures. The third category is what do you need, what can you plant after your last frost? So you've looked at the extended forecast. It is past April 15th, or at least in like the 10-15 day forecast, you don't have any threat of frost. What can you plant? And for me in that category is the first thing that will go in is beans. So I'm growing pole beans and bush beans. So I have a raised bed for the bush beans that don't need to grow up anything. They just kind of like crawl a little bit. And then your pole beans, they'll go on the cattle panel. So when my peas are done, they'll get pulled out when it gets too warm, and the beans will go in, and that's how I'm going to rotate it. If you're not doing beans, I just made a hybrid vegetable. If you're not doing peas and you have a trellis that's available, then do a pole bean. Do that after frost because they want it a little bit warmer for when they germinate. Now my last category, and this one is important, and this is the one where I think people often go wrong because they're so excited it's spring, they're so excited frost is over. They want to plant all the things. The garden centers look incredible. It's just like spilling over with plants and you want to do everything. So everyone is super excited. Frost is over, spring is here, plant all the things, buy all the things. I completely get it. This is how I feel. But what people do is they plant out their tomatoes, their peppers, their melons and cucumbers. Everything goes in the ground like the day after last frost. And the problem is your soil temperature is still not warm enough. So it's not simply about the fact that the air temperature is no longer going to be freezing. Some of these vegetables want warm, cozy little soil blankets. They don't want the still chilly lows in the 40s type temperatures that top couple inches of soil is going to be. And I hate to say it, but you need to wait on some of these. Typically the adage is wait 2 weeks after your last frost so your soil temperature can start getting warmer. For me, that is the 1st of May. That also protects you from even just the weatherman got it wrong and things got way colder than you thought. Give a buffer for these vegetables I'm about to list. And with some things, pushing it earlier and earlier doesn't actually yield the most fruitful plants because they get stunted and they get cold shocked and they get angry at you. And what happens is they don't transplant well, they don't set really strong roots and build that energy so they can give you lots of tomatoes and peppers. They almost like throw a tantrum and go and, stamp their feet and go in timeout and say like, I'm just gonna sit here. I'm not gonna die, I'm not gonna wither, I'm just gonna sit because I'm really uncomfortable. And then what you've done is you've created not as vigorous of a plant and you're gonna pay that penalty in July and August. So waiting 2 weeks doesn't lose you 2 weeks of growth. It's actually gonna give you bigger, more vigorous plants because you're planting them when it is the best conditions for them. In that category is tomatoes and peppers. Tomatoes can go in before peppers, but peppers really want it warm. They want warm soil, they want hot temperatures, they want long days and full sun. So putting them out in mid-April when you're still getting 40-degree lows and some cloud cover and you're having a 62-degree day, a 70-degree day, it's just not when they're going to thrive. It's the May temperatures when things are really starting to heat up that you want to give your peppers. And I believe also your tomatoes. Some people like to push it and they say it's fine and okay, but I would rather sit patiently for 2 weeks and have a really strong and happy plant than risk it and having to limp them along because I just got so excited and planted all the things. Another one is cucumbers. You can start cucumbers inside. You could start them like 3 weeks before you want to plant them out. So May 1st, 3 weeks before then. But cucumber seeds germinate so easily. I mean, you're going to get almost 100% germination every single time. And they don't need to be babied. And sometimes they don't even want to be messed with. So really, I would consider direct sowing your cucumbers. I direct sow them in my raised garden. I'm going to direct sow them in the field when I grow them this year. If you're nervous about it, put 2 seeds in each hole and then thin them if you want to. Some people hate thinning and they just want to do 1. If you're worried, put 2 in. They're cheap seeds, but to direct sow them into warm soil and they're going to take off. They'll probably germinate within 3 days. They're going to be really happy with you. So give that to them. Another one is zucchini. Same thing. Great germination. Direct sow it, warm soil, and it's just going to explode and be really happy with you. And then you have your melons. Cantaloupe and watermelon is what I'm going to grow. I have to ask my friend what cantaloupe she grew for me last year because it produced, I'm not even kidding you, over 20 cantaloupe on just one plant, and it tasted so good. And my kids loved it. We ended up calling it King Cantaloupe because it just had like a 15-foot sprawl with just melon after melon. I was so happy with it. So I've asked for that variety. And then for watermelon, I'm going to grow Crimson Sweet. It was really popular. Sugar Baby, which is very popular. I personally felt like it had so many seeds, it was hard for my little ones to really eat it well. But if you want smaller watermelons and not like big giant ones, Sugar Baby is a great choice. And then last on my list that I am growing that would like warm soil is I'm going to do a butternut squash. So again, the whole squash family, the zucchini, winter squash, pumpkins, all of that, super easy to germinate, direct sow, want warm temperatures, give them that, and don't push it. But if you want to start them from seed, 3 to 4 weeks ahead of May 1st, so April 1st, is when I would start a lot of that. Corn is very popular, direct sow, after frost, warm soil, easy. Okra, direct sow, warm soil for sure. In May, really easy. I'm not going to go over herbs in this video because I didn't want it to be information overload, but most herbs will do well from starting ahead of time. And so if you identify what you want to grow, find your last frost date, count backwards, and start your seeds. I would guess a lot of them are going to be in that like 6-week range, which we're coming up on in the beginning of March. You're going to be hitting that 4 to 6 weeks time frame when you want to start those seeds. Next to me here, I'll just list off some of what I'm going to do. I'm going to grow bee balm, borage, lemon balm, chamomile, basil, calendula. I think that's all I'm planning on doing this year, but they're going to get started here in a couple in that beginning March timeframe. So they would settle into the carrot, pea, lettuce timeline when you're starting things. That's everything, all the vegetables we're going to grow on our farm this year. I tried to identify things that we will actually eat, that the kids will actually eat, and that I've had somewhat success of growing so far since we've lived in Oklahoma. And I think we're going to do a good job this year. I am prepared and ready for battle with the bugs. I'm not going into it with full ignorance. I know what's going to hit me and when, and I hope that that also makes for even more success. But as I mentioned, I will film me doing a lot of this stuff and sharing it with you, like the onions that are coming up. I have a bunch of flower seeds I'm going to start soon. We are getting a bare root tree order in as we're going to do a planting or a video showing us plant those bare roots and how we prune them initially. Lots of fun stuff coming up as the season really gets started. March for us is like really when we get cranking. So follow along, subscribe, like. If you have any questions or if I forgot it, like super obvious vegetable that you have a question about, comment. I'll try to answer. And we'll see you in the next video.